What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we finally got that initial 500 miles done on the Gladiator. So we're ready to pop open those differentials and check everything out, check out our gears and make sure that everything's good. Anytime you throw in a new gear set, obviously the break-in is probably the most important part. Getting everything in spec is important too. You gotta have that good initial setup, but the break-in is just as important. What that does is you're gonna take it through different heat cycles of heating and cooling, and that's gonna both harden those gears, and it's also gonna polish that surface where that contact is at. In order for your gears to have a good lifespan and to last, you've gotta have a good break-in period. Usually what that break-in period entails, and every manufacturer could be a little bit different, so make sure you read about whatever gear you get. In general, for the first about 100 miles, you want to only go 10 miles or so and then stop and let those gears cool down. And then you want to just keep doing that all the way up to the 100 miles. You can go, 10 to 20 miles, just, light speeds, keep it under, I would say under 50, 60, somewhere around in there. Even 60 is kind of pushing it, but the main thing is just the light acceleration, just easy on the throttle and letting those gears heat up and letting them cool back down and taking them through those different heat phases so that you can get the good break-in. From that 100-mile mark up to the 500-mile mark, you still want to avoid long distance driving. You want to avoid heavy acceleration. You're kind of following those same guidelines as far as taking it through the heating cycles, not letting them get too hot. Heat is the biggest factor whenever you're breaking in your gears. On the Jeeps, and obviously any off-road vehicle that you're re-gearing, you're going to have that front differential that's only going to be in use, especially on the Jeeps, it's only going to be in use in four-wheel drive. So that makes break-in for the front end a lot harder. Now, Daniel, whenever he was doing his initial 500 miles, he got it out. He said, maybe he put 10 miles on the front end, which it's hard to do on that initial break-in. It's hard to get it in four-wheel drive. Even though today, technically that front end does not have a full break-in, we will still go ahead and pop that cover, check everything out just like we are with the back. Now, the next trip that we take, we're actually going to Moab here pretty soon. Once we initially get off-road, we'll probably kind of do an initial break-in, do a slow break-in on that front end. We'll try to put it in four-wheel drive, stop for a bit, let it cool down, try to do that a few times, just kind of ease into the four-wheel drive and the off-road and the trails just for that front end break-in. It's something to think about. Keep it in mind whenever you're doing your initial break-in, is that you got to get your Jeep in four-wheel drive and you got to try to get some miles on it. Even if it's not a lot, just try to get it out there, try to get it done so that you can get that good break-in in the front end. Talking about heat, one thing that we did is we left the stock covers on the Jeep during the break-in. Take it for what it's worth. You're not going to get much out of it, but he wanted to upgrade covers. So he went to Moto-Built, got some phenomenal covers. These are, 1/4-inch thick, either steel or cast iron, or cast, I can't remember which one, but man, these things are phenomenal. And I'll talk a little bit more about them here in a minute. But the thing is they are thick and you're not gonna have a whole lot of heat dissipation coming from these aftermarket covers. You're not gonna have as much as you would with the stock covers. So that's why during the initial break-in, we left the stock covers on, knowing that in 500 miles, we're gonna pop those covers off again and check all those gears out. In the meantime, for the break-in, leaving those stock covers with that thinner metal on there helps you get more heat out of that differential. So there are some covers that let you hold more fluid, which is also a good way to keep your heat down, increasing that fluid capacity. So if you were to swap covers, I would try to push towards something that's going to give you a higher fluid capacity, or just leave your stock covers on for that break-in so that you can cut out some of that heat. So like I said, he went to Moto-Built. These things are solid. They're heavy. They're all there. So one thing I will note about these though is they do not come painted. You can choose to powder coat them. What we did is we threw some paint on them, did a high temp black paint and then the orange for the Mojave. So he went orange on his bolts. The bolts as well had a note in there saying that they need to be coated, that they are not coated. There is no corrosion protection on these bolts. So we painted the bolt heads and he'll doing the whole black and orange to kind of match the Mojave theme. We did some high temp paint, threw it on there, clear coated it, baked it. They should last for a while. Obviously they're eventually going to start catching rocks and then we can just rattle can them. So it is what it is. Should be a pretty quick video. We're just going to pop those covers, take a look. Hopefully there's no issues. If everything looks good, we're throwing the covers back on and we're done. Now, if there are issues, then that's when we got to start looking at possibly either, if it's bad, we're going to have to redo the ring and pinion. I mean, if it's not too bad, we can run a pattern, kind of check everything out, see exactly where our backlash and what our pattern looks like, and see if maybe we need to make some adjustments. But usually after that 500 miles, if it's not set up right and you're having issues, not only are you going to hear it, there's going to be some sort of whining or howling or something, but also you're going to see it, and chances are if you can see it, then that gear set is probably no good anymore. So hopefully everything's good today. We'll get everything popped open, and yeah, we'll go check it out. All right, so we're not actually jacking up the vehicle or anything for this. We're just doing it all on the ground, on the creeper. So first things first, we'll get this rear end open up. Yeah. So one other thing, these gaskets that are on the Jeeps, they are a reusable gasket. Just kind of check it out, make sure that there's no nicks in it or anything. This is still the original one. We reused it after we did the regear, and we're actually planning on reusing it today as long as everything looks good on it. If not, I've got some gasket maker, but initial look here is it looks pretty good, so we'll probably just reuse this gasket. All right, so initially what I'm looking for is the back of your drain or your fill plug has a magnet on it. So I'm just kind of looking at that, making sure there's no big chunks. So you can kind of see there, yes, there's obviously metal shavings. There's gonna be metal shavings in there. But again, there's no big chunks. Everything's just very fine. I mean, you can tell that there's obviously metal in that, which that's normal. There's always gonna be metal shavings in there. It's looking pretty good. We've got nice even wear. The faces are smooth. They aren't quite as mirrored as I'd like. Take another look, and then here's the coast side. Same thing. I mean, it's got good, nice even wear, and everything's smooth. There is no pitting. There is no, damage to the gears. And again, there's no chunks in our case. It's all real fine. Pretty happy with this rear end. I think that everything looks good on our initial check, and we're gonna run with it. Okay, so we got the cover or the inside all cleaned out, just kind of sprayed it out a little bit, trying to get any of those small particles out. Not going too crazy because I don't want to flush all the oil out of any of my bearings or anything like that. Just kind of hit it with a little bit of brake clean and flush some of the main fluid out. And you can kind of see there with no light on them. We do have a mirror finish. It's just not as smooth as what I would have liked, but I think we are good still. So one thing to note whenever you go to reinstall your diff covers, the front and the rear are different sizes, even though, sitting on the bench, your two new covers will look almost identical. With Moto-Built, and I don't know about other brands, but with Moto-Built, you can actually measure the width. The width is slightly different on the two different covers. So make sure, which I don't know for sure if you can, with the bolt pattern, but just don't put the wrong diff cover on the wrong differential if it's even possible. I don't think the bolts will line up, but yeah, just something to note. So now I'm going to wrestle this new diff cover up in there, and then we'll snug it all down. All right, so that's it for the rear. We did end up having to drop the sway bar to get the new diff cover in because it's so much bigger, and we're pretty sure it does hold a higher capacity. Took a little bit more to get to that fill plug, but yep, there we go. That's it. We're done in the rear, calling it good, and hopefully this thing won't have to be opened up for quite some time. All right, so we'll go ahead and get it set up and start working on the front and do the same thing. All right, so here's a look at the front. Pretty much the same thing. Not quite as mirrored as I would like, but it's still looking good. I think everything that is just fine. Now, obviously we don't have as many miles on the front, but you can still see, well, hopefully you can see that good pattern. It's hard to get a good video on this, but yeah, there it is. The best I can show you anyway. We're happy with it. We're gonna call it good, and now we're gonna get it cleaned up and get our new cover on. All right, so we are all wrapped up on the front. Reused that same gasket, everything looked good on it, so we just reused that, got everything torqued down to 34 foot-pounds on all the differential cover bolts. So we're all done, no leaks, everything looks good. And yeah, hopefully we don't have to pop that open for quite some time. All right guys, so that's it. There's not a whole lot to the gear check after the 500 miles, after that break-in. Really all you're looking for is ideally you'll have a very good mirror finish on those gears, on those teeth where the contact is happening at. Ours was mirrored, not quite as mirrored as I would have liked, but I still think everything's fine. We still have a smooth finish. There's no marring of the teeth of the gears. Everything it looked pretty good to me. It wasn't perfect from what I've seen, but it's good enough. I mean, I don't see that there's any issue with those as far as those gears starting to deteriorate. So hopefully this thing lasts for another, however long until we end up doing lockers and some other stuff. I'm sure we've got more plans for this down the road. So after talking to Daniel, so he's increased almost about 2.5 miles per gallon since he did this. He's up to just under 17 miles per gallon right now. So, and that's kind of a mixture of highway and city. So about 2.5 mile per gallon increase, which is pretty significant. And then also now he's finally seeing 8th gear out on the highway. So that's always good, actually utilizing every gear in your transmission, not just working in those lower gears to maintain speed. That's the best thing about re-gearing and going to lower gearing whenever you go to bigger tires is you can actually maintain those highway speeds in your overdrive gears. It's a lot easier on your motor, your transmission, and then you get that better fuel mileage. So I think that's it for today. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you next time.